have the Panthers fan / Bryce Young truthers come down off cloud 9 yet after Sunday? Monday was just good vibes.
Stay there.
Tuesday, day number 2 of the offseason for the Panthers. Are you still high? Because I already know what's going to happen. And I before we do this, I just want to make sure everybody knows that I was doing the opposite as well. Okay, when everyone was 0% all the way out on Bryce Young, I was going, well, you got to play him even if there's just a 2% chance that he turns into something, right? When nobody wanted him to play and everybody wanted Andy Dalton, I was going, well, you shouldn't be all the way out on Bryce. So now that it seems like everybody is all the way 100% in on Bryce, I'm going to be doing the same thing again, going, well, maybe it wasn't necessarily as awesome as everybody is acting like it is. We're going to update the Bryceometer, which is a innovation we have here on the drive, where it basically is like our confidence level in Bryce Young. And I get the feeling that some are going to want it to be full throttle all the way to the right, all the way full, gas tank on full, and then another extra couple of gallons, like overflowing. I will not do that. It is as far up as it's been in a very long time. Bryce Young had a very good second half of the season. He is not some kind of awesome finished product, right? He is not some kind of all the way done, definitely give him a contract extension. He's not that. So we have it sitting right there at Bryce of America Stadium, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it's on the positive side, but it's not overflowing. We're not going to be forever young. We're not there yet. What is the most obvious thing that Bryce has learned from his career thus far? All right, some are going to say like, well, you gotta trust your receivers, or don't be afraid to throw it away. I think the most obvious thing that Bryce Young has learned is everything can change quick. He's been in the league for 2 years. He came into the league. He was the number 1 overall pick. The team that drafted him traded an insane amount to go up and get him with the number 1 overall pick. He was the starter from the first game he played, started top of the mountaintop. 1 season and 2 games later, he was the laughingstock of the league. He was benched for Andy Dalton. He was labeled a bust. He was deep in the valley. 10 games after that, he is the future of the team again. You can't go 2 steps without finding someone who's talking about how awesome he is.
Are we on the border of forever young? Gonna be
I'll
young
go that
forever?
far. I'll go that far.
We're going to go up that
far? I'm not
far?
putting it in the final slice. I'll put it as far without getting to the final slice. I'm fine with that. He's back on the top of the mountain right now. But what did he learn? He's 2 games away from being right down at the bottom, and it's not as if he's gotten to the point where established starters have, which is you've been good enough, long enough that you can go through slumps and we don't get worried. Dan Morgan, the GM, spoke to the media yesterday, part of all the exit interviews, and he talked about Bryce Young handling adversity.
To see Bryce, kind of go through the benching and be out on the practice field on the scout team, and he took the same approach every single day, and Dave was working with him every single day, even on the scout team, just with little details, just little things that he wanted him to work on. And hey, Bryce, to his credit, like he never batted an eye. He came out every day with the same approach, with the same attitude, and I think that's what it says a lot about Bryce and who he is and why he's successful right now.
Here's what I think everybody needs the reminder of. From where Bryce was week 1, week 2 to where he is now, there may be 1,000 miles between there. There might be another 10,000 miles to go for him to reach elite or upper level starter in this league level football. It's important to understand that. Today, did you see what Garrett Wilson tweeted?
I did.
All right. Well, then I'll explain it to everybody else. I don't even know. Somebody, a Panthers fan account or somebody that covers Panthers, whatever, talks about the Panthers on Twitter, put a highlight film of Bryce Young up and said something along the lines of, he might be better than we thought. Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver for the Jets, who may or may not be asking for a trade, depending on which rumors you believe, just commented he is, saying he is better than we thought. My first reaction is, I don't know, if he shows a little bit, if he's batting his eyes from across the bar, maybe the Panthers should think about it. He would be, and I tweeted this out, he'd be expensive. You'd have to trade a lot for him. You'd have to pay a lot for him, because I'm assuming he'd want a contract extension. But he would be a number one pick or a number one wide receiver for Bryce Young, and then I put in parentheses, or whoever that quarterback is. That drew a reaction immediately. Oh, whoever that quarterback is. Because now, all of a sudden, Bryce Young is so entrenched that it's ridiculous to think at some point in Garrett Wilson's career, somebody else would be the quarterback for the Panthers. That's not you're not there yet, Bryce. You're not there yet. You've come a long, long way. That's commendable. It's maybe the best in-season turnaround I've ever seen. You've got a long way to go. I'm gonna rein some people in here. Do you know how many times Bryce Young threw for 300 yards this season?
One, I believe.
I'm going to go ahead and double-check that because I'm fairly sure the answer is 0. You said it confident, which got me. I was like, wait a second. I looked this up earlier. The answer is 0. He had 298 against Tampa Bay.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
In every other game, not even close. 263 is the highest. There's quite a few games that start with a 1 in the hundredths column of the yardage total.
That game against the Bucs was also an OT game.
Well put. So the only reason he got close is because of OT. In the NFL, if you're going to be even an average level starter, you have to have the occasional volume game where you throw for 300 yards. I'm not asking for 400. I'm asking for 305. His best game in yards per attempt, because it's not like he's attempting 10 passes per game. In that Bucs game, he threw 46 times. Against Kansas City, he threw 35 times. 37 against Denver. 34 in their most recent game against Atlanta. Finished with 251 yards. If you took his best game in yards per attempt, like the high water mark, the game that raises his average. If you take his highest game in yards per attempt, it was 7.8 against Dallas. If he averaged that for the season, 8th in the NFL. If he averaged his best yards per attempt in any one game, and he did that on average over an entire season, he'd be flirting with the top 10. There'd be a whole bunch of guys 7.7, a whole bunch of guys 7.9. He'd be somewhere in that mix. That's not enough to stand on. Now, what did we say at the beginning of the year? What did I say at the beginning of the year involving Bryce Young? I'm going to treat this year like his rookie year. Because last year, due to how he was treated, the players around him, right? It's not like DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, the guys he was throwing to last year went on to somewhere else. Emir Smith-Marset went on to somewhere else and had, 1,000 receiving yards. The players that he was surrounded by, the coaching situation, the lack of stability, last year was a wash. So coming into this year, I said, let's treat this year like his rookie year all over again. What are you looking for in a rookie? Flashes. The moment's not too big for him. The showing that his physical abilities are good enough and that the mental abilities are going to catch up. He did that. This year, he did that, especially after the benching. That's enough to say, you get next year. 2025, it's Bryce Young's, and Dave Canales said as much. 2025, you're the guy. You have the whole offseason. Get ready, buddy, because you're the starter. I'm not picking up a fifth-year option yet. You don't even have to make that decision until next year, until after next season. A year from now, that offseason, which hopefully isn't right now, right? Because hopefully you're going in the postseason. A year and change from now is when you have to make the decision on a fifth-year option. I'm not doing anything yet. But that's not to downplay how far he's come. It's just to acknowledge how far that journey is. Give me a couple 350-yard passing games. Give me a couple. He had the 3-touchdown, 2 rushing touchdown game on Sunday. That's great. Give me more 3-touchdown games. I don't need 5, but give me more 3s. Give me more volume where you're number one on the scouting report. The other team's coming in saying we have to stop Bryce. That's what I'm looking for.
Do you think some of those yards are lower this season just because of the lack of guys, not the receivers, not getting yards after the catch?
Partially. And yes, we could do the context game on both sides, right? Because the other side is they trail a lot. They lose a lot. So you'd think you'd be trying to throw to get back in. How many times this year did we say, you got to trust Chuba Hubbard, get him the ball, stay dedicated to the run? If we're saying that, then, I mean, it's not like you're having plays where you're doing nothing. Like, those are pass plays that we were thinking should have been run plays. So, you know, the context game is there, right? And drops hurt your yardage totals for sure.
So I look at Jalen Coker led the team in yards after the catch with 171. That's 61st in the NFL.
Yes. But again, it's really hard to do that without a ton of film tape or film time because, you know, one of the most important things in Yak is ball placement. Yards after the catch comes with a ball that you can catch while on the run without slowing down. If it's a little behind, that could bring it back. And I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying it's really hard to talk that context without going through a ton of film, which maybe we'll do over the offseason, right? When you don't have games to watch, maybe we can dive in and really get there. It's tough. That's all I'll say. 161 yards against New Orleans in game 1, 84 in game 2. Those numbers, I don't know how many. You got all the yak in the world. I don't know if you're gonna end up there. I guess obviously, you know, a 263 game could turn into a 305 if you have really good yak, but it's hard to go that far definitively without knowing through watching film.